has black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions with all those people to get together and have an international post-hand revolution. Right on. And that's saying all power to the people. That's saying that no matter what color you are, you're just only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back because this is lower, this is upper. This is the oppressed, this is the oppressor. This is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here, and you got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy, and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face, they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start into dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than Hanrahan, other than Davey, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon.
What's popping, people? What's up, my friends, my family? We are back with another episode of Nick at Night. Welcome, my friends. Let me pop the banner up for you guys. RBN Wednesday Live. Wednesday Evening Night Live, better known as Nick at Night. We got a lot to discuss. I saw CJ covering this story earlier, and I saw this, and I want to bring this up because I feel like the boutique left is missing something that's extremely important regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene calling out AOC for debate. Have you guys noticed that Democrats hate democracy and they refuse to defend their ideas? You have AOC who refused to debate Marjorie Taylor Greene, an elected official on public policy. Now, I know there's some people, especially when it comes to YouTubers and people who have some sort of social media platform, that when you call for debate, it seems like you're looking for attention. Me personally, I've been in quite a few debates. I feel like as a public figure who has a platform to talk about politics, it's a good way to break the echo chamber. You know what I mean? So instead of us just yelling at each other, saying the same thing over here, let's have a debate with someone you disagree with. But they're not that big of a deal, right? And some people look at YouTubers and like, oh, whatever. They're just YouTube, social media debate, which is one thing, right? But what we are talking about here is public officials that have a lot of public recognition debating climate policy. Like, why is there not more of this? Like this, well, you see here, and we have Zoya. It's love, Zoya's life. We also have Andrew. They will be joining us today, but I want to show you guys this first, and then I'll bring our guest in, and I want to get their reaction and their overall take, because you have this. And the initial reaction, obviously, when Marjorie Taylor Greene posts something like this, is for the entirety of the left, like, oh, why should AOC debate you? You are unserious. You're a conspiracy theorist. They don't want to legitimize your point. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'll have the most recent numbers, but I looked up like the 2021 fundraising numbers, and she was like the highest fundraiser out of the Republican caucus because they made her out to be the celebrity because AOC and them constantly call her out. You have MSNBC that runs segments on her every single day. You have TYT that runs segments on her every day. Ilhan Omar, AOC, and them tweet about her every day. But then when she has to debate, you guys are like, oh, we don't want to legitimize her. You guys do that every day. So let's listen to this. and I'm gonna get my guess in here, but this is fascinating for a few reasons. And I'll explain why.
I actually challenged AOC to debates multiple times, and she has refused to debate me. And I wanted to specifically debate her on the Green New Deal. I wanted to challenge her as a successful business owner and an American taxpayer on her ideas that will completely change the way our country functions, not only with energy, but in our entire economy. But AOC couldn't do it. You want to know why? She's chicken, and she isn't brave enough to defend those ideas because they're not her own. They came out of a think tank, and she just put her name on them. I actually challenged.
See, guys, this is the part that's devastating, okay? Okay, guys. So this is not Marjorie Taylor Greene calling her out for a debate saying, oh, I want to debate you and expose you as the fraud you are. It's her calling her out specifically on climate policy, specifically on the Green New Deal, specifically on economic policy. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that she want to have a policy debate. And since when has the left been shy from taking these debates? Like, what isn't the whole point that you guys say, the people who want to take over the Democratic Party, is that we must support Marianne Williamson and all these people to join, to primary Joe Biden so they can get on the debate stage and spread progressive ideas. That's what you guys say. It's important to get a progressive on the debate stage to spread ideas. Why is that important? Because you have millions of people that will be watching that. Imagine the spectacle of AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene on the debate stage. Why do you guys put Marianne Williamson on the debate stage against Joe Biden, even though she has no criticism of his foreign policy? But she's gonna. You guys want her on the debate stage to discuss progressive ideas, but you guys don't want to discuss progressive ideas and expose the frauds that promote trickle-down economics? That's easy. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? That's easy. Anyone should be able to do that. Anyone should be able. I'll take any member of RBN. I'll take both my guests, any person you ever seen on this show in a debate against Marjorie Taylor Greene on economic policy. But AOC doesn't want to do it. Why? Why? And not the excuse they are giving you. The excuse that she don't want to make her legitimate. You guys do that all the time. You tweet about it all the time. She's more legitimate than you. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'll get Zoe Andrew, I'll get you guys in here. But Marjorie Taylor Greene has a more powerful committee assignment. I think she's on the oversight committee. I got Google check that. I gotta check. I gotta look at the comments. Fact check me, guys. I believe she's in the oversight committee. Way more powerful than anything that AOC in the squad is put on. Meanwhile, AOC in the squad get yanked off committees. So by all standards, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a more powerful politician than you are. So you guys don't want to legitimize her? This strategy that you guys had, where you guys was like, we're going to ignore Marjorie Taylor Greene, that failed. She's more legitimate and powerful than ever. So at this point, you might as well engage, not just to have a massive debate me bro win over her, which I think anyone can. The idea is to get people eyes watching, and you expose trickle-down economics and imperialism for the fraud and sham that it is. But AOC cannot do that because she's also imperialist with capitalist contradictions. What Marjorie Taylor Greene can point out that will destroy AOC in a debate is the fact that AOC pretends to be a climate activist, but she supports Ukraine war and military funding. And that's the zinger that Marjorie Taylor Greene had on her. Would you say, hey, AOC, what was that emission number on that weapons deal that you sent over? AOC never replied to that. Imagine if they having a debate and Marjorie Taylor Greene after that. You see these contradictions that AOC have that make her ineffectual in debating these things? A real principled leftist, anti-imperialist will not have these problems. So they run away from it. They make up all these bullshit excuses because she's an ineffective leader compared to Kshama Sawant. Kshama Sawant, friend of the show, who I believe is a really effective left leader, who's 100% confident in her ideas and beliefs because she's not a fraud, like Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of point out, and everyone knows she is. So Kshama said, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I see your attempts to get AOC to debate are not succeeding. If you like to debate an elected socialist rep, I'm happy to oblige. You falsely claim to represent working class people, but in reality, the right-wing policies you argue for will hurt American workers. AOC, How is this a hard argument to make? And I've seen people, and because I've been talking about this for quite some time. Marjorie Taylor Greene called AOC over a year ago, and I've been saying it been driving me crazy. AOC been ducking this debate because you can easily make this argument against her, but she can't because she's not equipped to do that, and she know that she support a policy. She support Joe Biden and the Democratic Party that's responsible for a lot of this stuff. So that's Kshama Sawant calling AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene out. So there's not even me saying, "Oh my God, look how Marjorie Taylor Greene calling out AOC." If Marjorie Taylor Greene ducking Kshama as well, because Marjorie posted that video and she don't want to accept the debate with Kshama. Which, once again, we should see more of this. Back to the conversation about democracy. And I'll get my guests in here. I'm going to give Zoya Zoya's love. Zoya's life. She helped me co-founded 10 Demands. Welcome to the show. We also have, you guys seen them last time on Nick at Night as well. Welcome back to the show, Andrew. Here we go. So I want to give you guys general takes on this, and then I got a lot of stories, so we're gonna move on here soon. But the issue of democracy, why do you guys think the American populace, they keep voting against their interests? They have no idea what the hell they're voting for. You have people that support Medicare for all, boomers that are like, yeah, I support single-payer health care, but they support that guy Biden over Bernie. So the problem is our democracy is a fraud. We should have high-level officials debating these people. Nancy Pelosi refuses to debate. Dianne Feinstein refuses to debate. AOC refuses to debate. The opposition she called all the time. We should have not even just AOC, but Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, the two Senate leaders. They should have a debate every damn Tuesday over public policies. Why do you put this on the floor, Chuck? Hey, why do you support this, Mitch? Why do you block this bill? And there should be like a monthly debate. I'll give you guys that. They're not doing anything. The House Speaker leaders, Hakeem Jeffries and Kevin McCarthy, should debate once every month. Because debate, it would lead to a well-informed populace. So it leads to a populace knowing where everyone stands on each issue, which is why they don't promote that kind of culture. So people say, oh my God, that's just debate me, bro shit. Yes, that's YouTube. That applies to us and YouTubers, right? But not public officials. Public officials should be debating this stuff all the time. But meanwhile, AOC running away like a coward. It's embarrassing. So I didn't mean to go on this long rant. But I want to get Andrew and Zoya in here. You guys can chime in. I'll start with Zoya. Anything you want to add? Welcome to the show. Good to have you guys here.
Hi, RBN fam. I'm Zoya, for those who don't know, activist, organizer, abolition enthusiast, and avid hugger, who just so happens to be from the Soviet Union. Happy to be joining Nick today to share with you what corporate-owned mainstream media never will.
So I think you're from Odessa, right? Formerly USSR. So she's here, and Zoya's taught me a lot in exposing the liberal propaganda, the lies they're telling about the region. And like you see like people like Matt Duss, Bernie Sanders foreign policy advisor, where he would just say stuff like, oh, there's no historical connection between Ukraine and Russia. You know, the country that used to literally be the Soviet Union, where families and people who live in Ukraine also have family that live in Russia, and they often will cross over and visit each other all the time. And these are things that I hear all the time as well. But anyway, I want to get Andrew as well in here. We got a lot to discuss. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, what's up? Hey, Nick. Hey, Zoya. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm gonna give you guys tips on. I want to show you guys this as well. I'm not gonna go on a long spill on this, but I saw this tweet from Jacobin. Speaking of the NATO left, because Lula, I'll talk about him for a second. I just want to bring this article up. I'm interested in you guys' thoughts. Lula is known, and this is where a lot of criticism comes from, as being, well, politician. He's a statesman, and a lot of the criticism that came from him from the Brazilian left is the fact that he reached across aisles and he had like more of a liberal coalition that he was building, more of a neoliberal coalition that he was more comfortable with. And then you have him that is more, the same way that he's willing to have relations with Xi Jinping and China, the same way they want to have relationship with Saudi Arabia. He's a statement first. He don't really care about the infighting and drama. So you had him go to the United States. He met Joe Biden, and that's when he famously rebuked Joe Biden on Ukraine policy. And then he met Bernie Sanders and AOC, and we showed you guys how Bernie and AOC was using Lula as PR, which, to be fair, Lula allowed him to do it. But the progressive left has taken this meeting between Lula and Bernie Sanders, and they have taken it to an extremely cringe level, and they think that's somehow justifies the electoral path within the Democratic Party, ignoring the fact that Lula meets with a lot of different people all over the world. And they now say Lula met Bernie Sanders, AOC. That's why that people should invest into the Democratic Party electoral system. I'm not bullshitting you. This is from the Jacobin left. This is unbelievable. Lula's enthusiastic greeting of Bernie Sanders and AOC should be seen as an embrace of their political project, which seeks to build working-class organization through electoral politics in an enormously hostile environment of hyper-capitalist America. So once again, I think they're 100% getting the wrong idea with this. Now, this is a very long, ridiculous article. I'll pick this part out in particular. Actually, I can read the first paragraph. It said when Lula went to Washington, D.C., the two political leaders at top of his meeting, AOC and Bernie Sanders. So once again, you guys are bragging about being the tallest midget, I guess. Because there's like, our Congress is filled with war criminals, hyper-capitalists. So, of course, you got social dem meeting social dem. But Lula rebukes your guys' politics when he goes to Joe Biden and said we shouldn't fund Ukraine war. The same way that Lula works with people he disagrees with, the same way he met with the Germany chancellor, the same way he builds a neoliberal coalition. That is what Lula does. But the NATO left is so desperate for a win, they were taking this and saying that, oh my God, Lula is an example of why we should run and support electoral politics, completely ignoring the different realities in Brazil and the fact that and we have two hyper-capitalist Democratic Party and Republican Party where the elections are rigged. But this is the part I want to read. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. This will be a short segment because I saw this earlier. This is what is really ridiculous.
Sorry, Lula also met with Biden.
So, yeah. Feel free to interrupt anytime, guys. But yeah, that's the point. Like Lula meets with everybody. That's his thing, and that's the thing he get criticized a lot for. Is his willingness to have coalitions with swamp creatures, and that's a legitimate criticism, I believe. So the NATO left see Lula, me, and Bernie and AOC. They're like, oh my God, Lula endorses us. It's embarrassing. Lula literally rebukes your politics all the time. Ro Khanna and the progressives in Congress are rabid anti-China hawks. But Lula wants to build coalition with China, want to work with China. He calls out and said we shouldn't be funding Ukraine. He calls out Zelensky. So your politics are far apart. And that's with me acknowledging that Lula is a moderate social democrat. Now, anywhere where I want him to be. But he's still better than you. I'll read this part here. Go ahead, Andrew, if you want to chime in real quick.
No, I have some other thoughts, but I'll keep it really quick with this point. I think the NATO left is a pretty good descriptor in so many ways, but a really particular way for this situation with AOC refusing to debate Marjorie Taylor Greene is, we've all seen AOC's word salad, just complete BS answers to what should be like walk in the park, easy questions to make your case to whoever's watching the TV at the time or her 80 billion Instagram followers. But because NATO and the left are entirely incompatible, like a real left is completely incompatible with NATO, she can't answer any real questions. She couldn't debate Marjorie Taylor Greene because it's just she has nothing coherent that can come out of her mouth because she's one of the few people in a position of power who could push policy and won't do it. So defending that position, defending the Green New Deal when she won't push hard for any of it, it's not really possible.
And support, saying you're a climate activist and you support the Green New Deal while supporting war in Ukraine, which leads to increased carbon emissions. These are gotchas that Marjorie Taylor Greene has on AOC that she knows she does. What will AOC or any of them say if Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene calls them out for Ukraine war support? They have nothing. They have no. CJ just covered Richie Torres being called out by our friend of the show Jose, and he's a complete moron on the issue. Look, make sure you check out that live stream where CJ breaks down the video. This protester calling out Richie Torres. The same with Jamal Bowman. The same with LC. These people have no idea what's going on in Ukraine. Have no idea the history. I have a segment we're gonna do later where you have the NATO chief Stoltenberg admits what we get called a conspiracy theorist for saying. He said how NATO was always involved in Ukraine since 2014. AOC and them have no idea about that stuff. And they will get exposed. Go ahead, Zoya. Go ahead.
There's no accountability from the political elite. You know, our rhetoric is correct. The facts are on our side. Our policies have majority support from voters. Any leftist should be easily able to dismantle a fellow lawmaker's arguments. These ideas must be challenged from AOC's grassroots own seat. She must represent us, not pretend that leaving Marjorie Taylor Greene unchallenged is somehow limiting her reach. She doesn't depend on AOC for a platform. So AOC's strategy is basically doing nothing. And then she has people like Ryan Grimm and Jacobin and this entire machine just running cover for her.
Yeah, and these same people be making excuses for AOC for not debating Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're like, yeah, of course she wouldn't debate Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why would she want to debase herself like that? You mean a person who's more unpopular than Kamala Harris, that she somehow got the moral high ground over anybody? You need this debate more than Marjorie Taylor Greene does. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether you like her or not, is promoting a culture that as workers we should endorse. Members of the ruling class debating policy with each other. Take the politician celebrities out of it. It's bigger than Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC. As I said earlier, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell should be forced to debate. Hakeem Jeffries and Kevin McCarthy should be forced to debate because they're the two leaders. If you're the Missouri senator and you got a Democratic colleague, you should be forced to debate. That's a bad example because we got two Republicans. But like, if there's a state where there's a Democrat and Republican senator, they should debate. You know what I mean? And not even just the Marjorie Taylor Greene issue. The fact that there's not debate among the ruling class is how they get away with not explaining their policy. And even from a liberal point of view, this is not a Marxist position. Like, if you're a liberal, why wouldn't you want someone to call out Mitch McConnell for what he does? Because Mitch McConnell famously blocks all the bills. So if you do what I propose, where the two Senate leaders have to debate every like once every Tuesday out of the month, like 12 debates a month, 12 debates a year, I mean, you call Mitch McConnell out for that shit. But they don't, because they never get that opportunity, because they support this horrific capitalist dictatorship that they call a democracy, right? But I want to read this part here because this is from the Jacobin article. This shows why Jacobin is agents of the Democratic Party. This shows that their job is to get people to believe in the myth that we're going to push the party to the left. Jacobin still believes that AOC and Bernie did a great job on that. As Joe Biden funds the police more, as he fracks the shit out, he fracks more, he do more public drilling. Fund the military more. The border industrial complex, meaning DHS, ICE, and border control, they get record amount of money under the Biden administration. Big oil is making record amount of money under the Biden administration. But people still believe in Jacobin that Bernie Sanders and AOC influenced anything within the party. The only thing that AOC and Bernie is doing is providing cover from the things I just told you. So they're actually doing worse than you think. It's not the criticism that I have is not the failure of shifting the party to the left. My criticism is that they now are sheep herding people who are otherwise revolutionary, otherwise who have criticism of Biden for warmongering. They are providing a shield. AOC is there to go on Rachel Maddow to tell you how Biden's State of the Union was amazing. You guys, that's a massive negative propaganda campaign that even Joe Manchin couldn't pull off. Let me read it. Go ahead, Andrew. I think Andrew.
Yeah, just really quick. That's such a good point that you make, that actually in reality, instead of platforming Marjorie Taylor Greene or any type of Republican. I mean, the only people that AOC and Bernie continually, the rest of the so-called squad continually platform and prop up are the Democratic Party. They lend them a thin thread between themselves and somebody like Lula, who is internationally popular, who domestically has been very popular. And even though he has done all of these kind of, negotiated settlements and sort of statecraft projects where he doesn't push quite as left as he might actually have been in his earlier days as a union leader. All AOC and Bernie have to do occasionally is tie themselves to him, and they're using themselves, their kind of curated image of themselves, plus Lula and whoever else they can grab to prop up the Democratic Party. They're not propping up Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You have AOC locking arms with Chuck Schumer while they boo and shoo away an anti-war activist.
And an important thing to know is Jacobin was founded by a former vice chair of DSA, who is a really wealthy writer who also writes for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Vox, and The Nation.
Watch till you see this. I didn't want to read the whole article because it's ridiculous, and I want to make it a short segment. But I did pull this segment in particular because this shows you exactly the role that Jacobin is playing. Look at this article here. Still, it is telling that Lula flagged Sanders and AOC, who detractors insist are Democratic lackeys and purveyors of a thin gruel electoralism hostile to genuine working class politics. So hold up, Jacobin. You're telling me that Lula having a photo out with Bernie Sanders and AOC erases all of the criticism that we have of them. That is what they're saying here. They're saying that, oh my God, we're the detractors, meaning RBN. They see what we're saying. Or Jimmy Dorka, he's a bigger outlet than us. Let's say Jimmy, because we're still a small channel, right? So they see people like Jimmy and the Convo Cow. They see Black Agenda Report. They see Gray Zone. They see RBN. They see the people who call these frauds out who they are. People who support war. People who support the DHS. People who support the police. People who support the surveillance state. And they say, oh, none of that criticism that you have of them is real because they did a photo out with Lula. Are you serious? This is what passes for journalistic standards in the boutique left. Do you guys see this? I'm going to read it again. It's telling that Lula flagged AOC and Bernie, who detractors insist are Democratic lackeys. That is exactly what they are. Look, Jacobin, do you see AOC on Rachel Maddow covering for Joe Biden's ridiculous lies? They even Status Quo did a video call now. We did a reaction live where we didn't even have time to break down all the lies he was telling. But AOC went on there and said they're doing amazing. You have the progressives that just came out and said they're not even willing to support a primary challenger against Biden because of the State of the Union. But Jacobin is trying to refute the fact that they're Democratic lackeys. And I only got the first three lines. Like it's incredible what comes out of the boutique left. And they call us toxic for rebuking this nonsense. They are literally going directly at RBN, whether they know it or not. And maybe this may be aimed at Jimmy or someone else. But this is what we do. We call these people out. And they're saying, anyway, let me continue their quote. Who detractors insist are Democratic lackeys and purveyors of a thin-grilled electoralism hostile to genuine working class politics. It is. Anyway, at tribunes of the left in the United States, this gesture is of a piece with Lula's longstanding insistence that electoral politics are a crucial vehicle for social progress and that building political power to deliver substantive improvements to poor and working class people, and more important than, check this, ideological purity plays. What are you I'm telling you guys right now, and I'm drawing my line in the sand here. There is no one who is an advocate of the workers, who is a leftist, who uses the term purity ploys and purity politics. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? To say, oh my God, you guys got purity tests. Let me bring up an example to explain what I mean here. Imagine if you are running in the Democratic Party, but you are strongly anti-gay. Like you're like aggressively anti-gay. And then people call you out for being anti-gay, and you're like, oh my God, you guys are your purity test. And you're like, what do you mean purity test? Imagine if you in the Republican Party, or no, let me make it worse. Imagine if you're in the Libertarian Party, running in a party that believe in low taxes, no regulation, and you're like, you know what, I'm running a Libertarian Party, I want to change things up. I believe in high taxes. I believe in hella government regulation. They're like, you're not a libertarian. And then you're like, oh my God, you guys in your purity plays. You guys see how ridiculous that is? You're either right on issues or you're wrong. You're either left or you're not on the left. This thing when people say you're purity testing, you're either right on these issues or you're not. And the AOC burning the squad are factually wrong on these issues. For funding war. Apologizing for a guy who funded the border industrial complex more. But this, no, and I'm telling you, that's my line saying no one who's actually a advocate of the worker ever uses the term purity test. You mean standing for your values? That's literally unbelievable coming from Jacobin. But what you guys, I want to get Zoya, Andrew in here. If you guys want to chime in.
What more is there to say? I mean, it's just a propaganda rag at this point. And the problem is that they misrepresent the left, and a lot of youth are misguided by them. And they're sucking energy from real activists. And every time organizers want to put together an action that hasn't been approved by this managerial left, we're the ones being criticized and attacked. And somehow now it's become okay to attack organizers. These people are protecting those who are supposed to be accountable to us. They are standing between the people and the representatives who owe them accountability.
Anything you want to add before I wrap this segment up, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, purity test. I think a great synonym for a purity test would be basic fucking standards for voters to have.
Yeah.
And like contrast AOC and Bernie, where Bernie clearly can debate. I mean, he did some really good performances in both of his campaigns, talking directly to Fox News, which I think is a pretty good comparison between, like, you know, pick any Democrat and Republican, have them debate once a month. What Bernie did there was good. And then when he went to debate Joe Biden, I mean, he was basically just like helping Joe Biden stand up straight and look at the camera and teeing up his talking points for him. You look at AOC, there really is no debates from AOC. Her talking to interviewers where it's supposed to be a softball interview, she can't get through it. Meanwhile, take Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is debating people in Brazil who think that he should be in jail for being gay, or that he should be in jail for the reporting that he does. And I don't know if you remember that clip where this very kind of big right-wing streamer radio host in Brazil, he slapped Glenn in the face in the interview.
Oh, I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and instead of going, oh, I'm not going to, they're abusive, January 6th, I'm not going to platform them, he got closer up in that guy's face because Glenn has actual courage and he can back up what he's saying in two different languages. And we have nothing close to that in the Democratic Party. It's a total waste. I would much rather see Kshama Sawant or Matthew Ho debate Marjorie Taylor Greene. And yeah, all agreement with Zoya and yourself on Jacobin.
Yeah, and last thing I want to say, because this is the straw man argument that comes from the boutique left, and we smacked down Marianne Williamson for doing, not her, Crystal Ball for doing this in our segment where she was railing against people who advocate for third parties. She said this is their straw man, where they say electoral politics are a crucial vehicle for social progress. Well, the thing is, I say that there's about 15% of our energy that should be spent on electoral politics. So what they say, oh my God, you guys rail against electoral politics in general. That is not what we do. I am a strong believer in ballot initiatives. Guys, do you know how fucking amazing it is that I can go down 5 minutes down this block and get a bag now? This shit now that I do in my show is now legal. I'm not going to say for monetization reasons. But I can now go down the street and get a dime bag now. There was a Medicaid expansion in Missouri. There was a public housing initiative in Missouri that passed. That's electoral politics that I 100% endorse. If you don't have ballot initiatives in your state, the only focus you should have is to make sure you get ballot initiatives. Because ballot initiatives are the only way we get wins in Missouri, right? Advocating for third party come for that small percent of how much energy we spend in electoral politics. So they keep saying that RBN, the Jimmy Dore left, the gray zone, the combo code, and all of a sudden they keep saying that we criticize electoralism. A lot of us are saying, no, you guys are doing it wrong. Your version of taking over the Democratic Party, it's been an objective failure. That is what we're saying. They take that criticism, they can't rebuke it. So they say, oh, you guys just don't believe in electoralism in general, which you guys see. I had Comrade Misty, who's a great friend of mine, who criticized me for my left, who said she don't believe in electoral politics at all. And I say I think that's a legitimate and based position, but I still believe in stuff like ballot initiatives, third party pushes as a way for movement building. And as a Marxist, I believe in building organization. And the best way you can spread Marxist political ideas is through political parties and organizations that way. That's what I believe. And then she bring up Lula, and they say in this article that Lula is an example of why electoral politics works. For one, doing the same thing the right wing does, which is ridiculous, where they ignore all the context of the country. For one, like I said, I believe in electoralism as well. I don't believe in the two-party duopoly. Look how many political parties, and the reason I pulled this up because I didn't fucking know, to be honest. So I literally Googled that, like, let me see how many political parties are there in Brazil. And I know all these are not major, but like countries like Venezuela and Nicaragua had like 6+ parties on the presidential ballot. How many did we have? I live in Missouri, who have more than most, because we get the Libertarian and the Green Party on candidate on the ballot. So we get 4 choices in Missouri. And there are other states that have no Green or Libertarian Party, so they get 2 choices. But Jacobin is saying that, oh my God, electoralism will work. No, not in this capitalist dictatorship. Hey, aren't you a socialist? You see, you're doing capitalist apologia. As a Marxist, as a communist, I, to my core, do not believe this is a democracy. We are not going to have any sort of national or major electoral victories until we have a revolution that changes the system. So until we have a system where multiple parties can thrive, until we don't live in a capitalist dictatorship where you can predict elections at a 97% rate based on who have the most money, how about we do other tactics other than sending our money to Marianne Williamson instead of sending our money to these grifters? But Jacobin, knowing they can't refute that, had to straw man the argument, which they did. So there's my final thoughts on the story. We got a lot of cover We got a lot of cover. Once again, Reflect the Sun. Big shout out to your super sticker. I appreciate the support as well. I put that up earlier. I'm producing alone today, so I'm trying to catch all the comments I can. Make sure you guys leave a super chat if you guys have anything you want me to read. Like, the comments is popping today. Nick at Night is popping, fam. Nick at Night is popping. So some people say I should do this 3 times a week. We see, man. We see, because it's fun. We got the crew. I had to call in the favor. I had to call in the crew in today. I was like, Zoya, Andrew, what's good? We got so many great guests I can pull on. So we see. But I want to get to our next story. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I don't have any producers. I think I got all of them. Hopefully I didn't miss any. So let me get to the next story. And this is the part where NATO says the quiet part out loud. I can't wait to get Zoya's thoughts on this, because she is she has the life experience. Not only is she well researched, but she does a great job exposing Western talking points on this. And essentially, the West, they call RBN Putin puppets. People like Richie Torres look at Jose like he's crazy because he bring up facts that they don't know. Ilhan Omar, when called out for Ukraine funding, he's like, oh my God, couldn't wait to rebuke you, Russian propagandists. They have no idea what the hell is going on. You have people in NATO that admit things that we say on the timeline, and people call us a conspiracy theorist. And this is unbelievable. This is, I think, Jens Stoltenberg, the chief of NATO. We play him all the time on this show. Like, this guy is constantly saying unhinged shit. Like, he's the same guy that said you can expect a full-out NATO war with China coming soon. Now, this guy, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with him, because he just say the quiet part out loud all the time. And I guess he knows the Western media is not going to cover anything of significance. in this country, I guess. So he says this stuff. He's like, well, I know BBC's not going to cover this. I know the NATO left media is not going to cover this. But this is why people like RBN and other anti-imperialist media exist. This comes from his mouth. Listen to this.
It didn't start in February last year. The war started in 2014. And since 2014, NATO allies have provided support to Ukraine with training, with equipment. So the Ukrainian armed forces were much stronger in 2022 than they were in 2014. And of course, that made a huge difference when President Putin decided to attack Ukraine.
That's him just saying, yeah, we was involved in 2014. We did that in order to make sure the Ukrainian forces are strong to fight Russia later. The same way that you literally had German politicians, you have NATO leaders that say stuff like, out and open, yeah, the Minsk Accords, it was just a stalling tactic. We never planned on implementing those. The Minsk Accord was just a stalling tactic so the Ukrainian Nazis can build up the militaristic force while the fascist regime under Zelensky and the Western Ukrainian rule can solidify power. Allow them to do that, and then let's come together and fight Russia. These are things that they're saying out loud. But if you say this, which I've said this many times, many people who've been rebuking the Ukraine war have been telling people like Matt Duss and the NATO left that this war did not start last year. The war started in 2014. Ukraine lost its sovereignty the second that Victoria Nuland selected their prime minister. The second that NATO decided to arm Nazis in Ukraine, that even something that Jacobin reported on. Here it is. I got this bookmark. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because we all know that Jacobin is hijacked by Democratic establishment shields, as I just exposed in my last segment. But look, even they used to write about this. Look, this is January 2022. So right before the invasion. And then they're like, oh, shit. The CIA may be breeding Nazi terror in Ukraine. The CIA has been secretly training anti-Russian groups in Ukraine since 2015. Now, this is what the NATO left used to talk about. Ilhan Omar used to talk about, Rokana used to call out Ukraine funding and how we shouldn't be funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. He literally tweeted that and then deleted it. So that's how you know the NATO left is not acting in good faith. They are completely erasing these articles they used to write from the brain. Zoya, Andrew, any thoughts on this? I get Zoya in here first, then we get Andrew in here.
It's just so vindicating to find these clips so that we can reference them instead of people, replying with Putin's puppet and you work for the Kremlin and all of this nonsense, because this was in the public sphere. It's incredible how Americans have amnesia. I mean, even the war in Iraq, we went in there illegitimately, killed over 1 million people, and we're still in Iraq. These people lied to us about weapons of mass destruction, and now people are actually quoting the Pentagon like they're a reliable source. Putin has offered diplomacy throughout this conflict. And even the Nord Stream pipeline, the fact that we needed some expose to be able to discuss it, when logically, Putin said himself, why would I blow up my own pipeline when I can just shut it off? And that logic is not enough.
And now,
go ahead.
Sorry, my bad, Zoya. But now the NATO left, I noticed, they're not covering the Seymour Hersh bombshell on the Nord Stream pipeline. There's been a massive media blackout on that story. Right? I want to get Andrew in here, and then Zoya, I'll let you chime in after that. So, Andrew, anything you want to add to the conversation of Stoltenberg and saying the quiet part out loud? Once again, they keep doing it.
Yeah, I'll just say it's so valuable having these clips, and there's a lot of people. I mean, primarily I want to plug like Case Study QB, because you just spend so much time watching all this mind-numbing crap that I can't stand. Like, if my parents have it on in the other room when I'm home, I'm like, oh man, I got to go outside.
Yeah.
And I can do it if I put myself in the mindset. I have some intoxicating substances and like maybe put on like music behind me. I can do it, but it's hard work, and
I didn't watch any corporate media for years, and I started doing propaganda report with CJ, and I wanted to expose to people the obvious lies that we do. Now, when we do these propaganda report segments, I didn't start watching corporate media again until we started RBN, because especially in the midst of the Ukraine war, I wanted to show people segments on how they lying. So I started watching it again, and I may be wrong here, but I was like, I feel like it's worse. I feel like it's worse now, because I was like, dude, this shit is unbearable. Like, you watch Morning Joe. I never watch these things for like news. I will literally watch it just to observe how openly they propagandizing people. To me, it's fascinating. Like, I'm watching Morning Joe. I see like the Fox and Friends people. I didn't watch corporate media for years. Now I'm doing propaganda. I'm like, this is unbelievable what they're doing to our people. But Andrew, sorry, I want to get Andrew and Zoya. I'll get you guys back in before I move on.
No worries. I mean, I pretty much was going to wrap that up. I was just going to say, like, well, I don't know. I'll be announcing more later on, but probably in about 6 to 7 weeks, I'm helping some other people that we actually all met from Call-In. And what we're going to do is put together archives of this stuff, of these clips, plus other news articles that's searchable. Because there's been so many times where I'm having to go back through Case's Twitter, or like look for an old episode of you and CJ. And like, where's that one clip where Hillary Clinton accidentally told the truth about Syria, talking to that general on CNN? And it's just hard to find. And so I just praise everybody who's doing that work. Yeah, and it's the best ammunition, like what Zoya mentioned earlier. Like, if you just say anything logical, like, why wouldn't Putin just turn off the pipeline instead of wasting the billions of dollars on Russia's part to build it? I remember around like the 2016 election being like, well, okay, I don't really think Russia's mingling in the election, but say that they are. I mean, Hillary Clinton is talking about no-fly zone for Russian jets in Syria. So, I mean, doesn't that kind of make sense for them? Like, if that's what they're seeing on TV, wouldn't they kind of be interested in not going to war with the United States, and people just lose their mind? But I guess I'll just repeat one more time. Like, I'll probably say this every day of the week. There are more people who don't vote in the United States than people that vote. And there are also many more people that don't watch this media. And so I think it's very valuable to have these clips to throw back in the face of the politicians and their stooges when they're trying to say, oh, you're just Putin's puppet or whatever. Well, here I have a clip of you saying this right here. So you can't really call me that. But at the same time, like, I think we also got to always be realistic that, like, even if we're making just excellent arguments, we start to, build up our political power in our communities, using whatever strategies we have in a few years. We're maybe, if we're lucky, we'll pull 10-15% of the people away from Democrat and Republican parties. But a lot of those people, like, that's a minority of society that has a problem. Like, I'm talking about like a serious, like, social problem where they can't pull themselves away from the corporate media or the parties, even though they're either being harmed by them or they have to ignore other people being harmed by them.
Well said, Andrew. I'm going to continue with the segment. I'll get you guys back in here. I
was going to add.
Go ahead.
America openly admits to overthrowing governments, and somehow when America does it, it's seen as protecting democracy. And right now, Zelensky has banned the press in Ukraine. He's banned 11 political parties and the second largest church in Ukraine. And armed thugs are pulling men off the streets and from their homes, forcing them to serve in this neo-Nazi resistance they have. And yet, our taxpayer money is going to these people instead of building infrastructure. And now we have these derailments causing environmental disasters. And meanwhile, our government won't even have town halls with us, refuses to acknowledge us. These politicians that are supposed to represent us aren't fighting for our issues. The only way we can start to wake people up is by presenting this counter narrative to the mainstream media so that people understand what's actually happening on the ground and don't fall for it anymore. Because way too many anti-war activists have suddenly become pro-war simply because a new villain was given to them. And whether it's going to be Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein or Putin, and next it's going to be China, they're always going to find a villain. They're always going to frame it as a just cause. But in reality, we're just killing millions of women and children. And there's no excuse for that.
And they ready for the war with China. There was I'll make over this tomorrow, but Caitlin Johnstone flagged this insane ad where Australia was pretty much prepping their people for war, showing the Chinese military said we gotta get ready for war. And now you had these people, as you said, they claim to be anti-war until the new war hits, and then they'll criticize our Afghanistan war, Iraq war. They'll criticize all the old shit they did, and then the new shit will pop up, and then they fall for the propaganda campaign, and all of a sudden they believe that the military-industrial complex and these war criminals are on a just campaign to defend Ukrainians instead of embarking on expanding the military-industrial complex in the armed state. They don't bring up the fact that NATO requires 2% military spending from each of their nation states. So the United States have a vested interest in having NATO expanded so the arms industry can benefit. And they don't call it the conflict of interest. They're not interested in talking about it. Not interested in talking about facts or history, for example. I'm going to show what else this NATO chief has said. He also said that a war with China is coming. This is another article that came from September. He called China a security challenge. And you got all these people, you got these progressives like Richie Torres, Maxwell Frost, and these people trying to do these town halls where they're like, yeah, let's fight the Republicans, man. We got to fight hard, push for incrementalism. Meanwhile, the ruling class is engaging in unhinged warmongering that they are supporting. And that's why when Jose is calling out Richie Torres, he's saying all this shit you talking about the Bronx, all this local politics means nothing if we are probably to a nuclear war, what NATO is actively looking to push, right? And once again, Stoltenberg has been caught saying this kind of stuff. And now he's gone. Because I don't know, this dude says a lot of crazy shit recently. So I don't know, like I saw this earlier, so I don't know if it's connected, but I think it's a funny way to wrap this part of the segment up. Because now Stoltenberg will not seek another extension of his term. So he's gone. So I'll just ask a question. Wonder if they told him not to run again. Or maybe he knew he wasn't going to run again, and that's why he starts saying crazy shit out loud like that. I don't know. I think it's just a funny way to end the segment, to be honest. But he said the quiet part out loud too many times, I think. But anyway, any last thoughts you guys have on this? I want to share this video. This is Claire Daly. I was thinking about putting this on the intro video. But to my earlier point, when you look at the media in this country and their lack of curiosity, this is what I said on the Jimmy Dore show. Well, I was like, you have the Nord Stream pipeline, which obviously the United States did it. And Seymour, he explains, he's like, bro, it wasn't like really hard to find this information. Like, it wasn't really hard to ask around and get this information. It's just no one was interested in the Western media. The lack of curiosity in this country, in the Western media, I do not see as a coincidence. Like, people just think, oh my God, why all these shitty reporters are high? No, it's not a coincidence. What we have is the worst form of state media. You have capitalists pretend that we're the land of the free. That, oh my God, China, Russia, they got state media. No, the media complicity in this country, any tyrant or dictator will be in awe of and jealous of. They just know what to say. They know if they say anything about the Ukraine war, their career is over. Their livelihood is over. Their position in their social club is over. They built such a complex media apparatus where you can't climb. This is what Noam Chomsky wrote about in Manufactured Consent. You can't climb this social media ladder. I didn't mean social media, but like social corporate media career ladder without already knowing what you have to do. If you cover Nord Stream and you expose how the United States did it, you're not going to be in that job. If you even have the mindset that will make you do that, you probably wouldn't even make it that far. That's how complex our media system, which no one else has ever been able to pull off, right? You have some countries that have ranked state media that repeats the government narrative. No, we got that new shit, son. Like I said about AOC and Bernie. When it comes to selling out, they are that new shit. This is that new propaganda. Now I'm gonna play Claire Daly here, because Claire Daly's gonna call this out. Like, why no one? Where's the responsibility after this bombshell reporting? So let's play the video. I think it speaks for itself.
Since September, the lack of interest in finding answers to who was behind the Nord Stream. gas explosion has been frankly astounding. This was an act of sabotage, an act of unrivaled vandalism, economically and environmentally, and not a word, no discussion, no questions. Then along comes Seymour Hersh, the world's most acclaimed, distinguished living investigative journalist. He produces a detailed claim that the United States executed this explosion with the help of Norway. Planned months before the invasion, a Norwegian Navy P-8 surveillance plane dropped a sonar buoy on the 26th of September, which triggered explosions planted by US Navy Panama City divers 3 months earlier under a NATO exercise, and still nothing. I don't know what happened, but I want to know. This is a man who doesn't make claims lightly, a man with contacts, and I find it frankly jaw-dropping that the EU is not asking questions as to who is responsible for sabotaging the livelihoods of our citizens. I am ashamed to be a European.
I am ashamed to be a European. Ah, Claire Daly, base as hell. And can I admit something? Can I admit that I'm jealous as hell that Sabby Sabs got an interview with her? Great for Sabby. But Claire base as always. Andrew, Zoya, any takes you want to add before I move on real quick? Going once.
Thank God for Claire Daly. I mean, at least somebody's calling it out on a public stage, but the Russians are also planning to take this to the UN Security Council. They want to debate this issue on a public stage themselves.
Yeah, well, so I also see this comment. That'd be interesting. Someone needs to send me this clip. It said Jimmy Dore gave RBN a shout out on Timcast tonight. That was awesome. Big shout out to Jimmy then for doing that. I remember I saw because Tim Pool, he's on that good algorithm shit. You know what I mean? Like RBN, we've been suppressed as hell, and I maybe just be talking shit here, but I would see like Tim Pool shit, and I'm not even subscribed to the channel. I remember I saw a live stream one time of him, and he had like 40,000 people watching. I was like, Jesus Christ! We think like Jimmy has been big. Jimmy gets like 15,000 live viewers, which is like way more. You guys see, we got 350 now, like way more than us. But then like Tim Pool, I saw he had like 40K. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. The right-wing media apparatus is insane. So that's why it's good that he gave us a shout out on there, because he got a giant platform. That's why people who say that RBN is grifter, I'm like, what? Like, bro, do you realize how much bigger we would be if we was like a group of black people telling you that Donald Trump had our best interest in mind? Like, there's this guy, Terrence Williams, some shit like that. There's this other black YouTuber. This black guy, he started out last year, got 450,000 subscribers in 1 year because he go on his YouTube channel and he's like, yo, Democrats are horrible, Donald Trump is great. He's like, that's where the real grift is. There's no grift in being a black Marxist, guys. I promise you. This is not the move. But anyway, Andrew, if you want to chime in, if you want to chime in anything, I will move on to the next part. I'm talking shit now.
No, it's all good. Just real quick, yeah, I think you can pretty easily kind of reconstruct parts of the algorithms on these different social networks. It's pretty clear. Anybody who's like, oh, I used to be a Democrat, but then they went to part of the left, or I used to be a Republican until Trump came around. Like anyone who will uphold the myth of the center and help people swallow the pill that the center is somehow not a radical, extreme, violent politics in the United States. They'll get plenty of ups on the algorithm.
Well said. And I noticed this, and I'll move on because at this point I'm just kind of fun here. But even the people who call out controversial issues, like people who call out the Ukraine war and stuff, the algorithm will still promote them as long as at the end of the day, as long as they promote the two-party duopoly. You know what I mean? It don't matter what you talk about. As long as at the end of the day, your solution is vote Republican, vote Democrat. Even if you call it the Ukraine war and say, oh my God, the Ukraine war is evil because the Democrats are leading us to World War III, so we got to support the Republicans. They will boost you. They don't give a shit. And as long as you promote the two-party duopoly, I don't have any hard evidence for this. This is my observation, that as long as you say that, as long as you're not advocating for a revolution or upheaval of third parties or mutual aid, then they don't get, like, you're not a threat as long as if you're promoting either party. Thank you for the super chat. Candace Owens and conservative twins got that. Yeah, the conservative black twins. Dude, they had such a great gimmick black twins that they do this like comedy bit together to expose the liberal agenda. And bro, I'm telling you, Candace Owens, Terrence Williams, this guy, they're perfect examples of it. If you're a black person, you tell these Republicans what they want to hear, that's where the bag is at. I don't know why people think the bag is telling people not to support the two-party duopoly that people are rewarded for promoting, right? But anyway, let's get back to the Nord Stream, right? Because we went a little bit off topic there. But let's get back to this, because this actually, despite how much the Western media is trying to cover this up, like this bombshell is going to have implications. This was a big blow to Germany and Europe, to the point where when this happened, sanctioned the United States was trending in Germany after that. It wasn't trending because the ruling class was tweeting it out. It's because so many Germans like, tired of these motherfuckers. You guys are, we are ruled by cucks. Well, I'm sure not the people, because the German government, the same with the Japanese government, are completely cut to the United States. And it was hilarious. After the Nord Stream pipeline happened, you had the German politicians like, oh man, it's crazy. Who knows who could have done this? We did an investigation. Who knows? As if everyone didn't know. But let me read this, because I saw this fascinating. This came out yesterday. The U.S. blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline's economic war against EU allies, said a Swedish expert. So there are people in Europe that are starting to realize this. I'll read this part here, and I'll pass to you guys. The truth that the United States Navy was involved in the Nord Stream pipeline explosion last year, as discovered by, say, Hirsch, was an economic war against its submissive allies in Europe. That is what a Swedish expert said. So there are people in Europe that see the United States doing what we warned you guys over a year ago. We told you guys the United States is waging war against their own allies, forcibly taking them off of Russian energy dependence. Like, how do you make that decision for them? We did a segment months ago where this guy was like, yeah, the Nord Stream being bombed is good because it will wane Europe from Russian energy dependence. I'm like, how is that your decision to make? How is that your decision to make? They are waging economic war that will destroy the global working class, and then their response to people in the UK who are struggling because of energy bills, and the Ukrainians who are suffering because of the war they don't want to end, it's just, come on, man, hang in there, champ. I remember Boris Johnson famously said, come on, man, we all in this together. Nigga, you in a mansion with gold silk sheets, and you telling working class people who paying high energy bills that we in it together. But let me continue. Nord Stream was, of course, blown up by the United States and NATO, said Jan Oberg. Now, this person is the director of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Research. They just summed up the article here. I'll read this part here. Say Hirsch's fine analysis tells us how the destruction was planned and done, but the conclusion is unsurprising. The United States, with very important Norwegian assistance, committed the crime against a friendly allied country, Germany and other European countries. So this person, this peace activist, this quote-unquote expert here, is calling out the United States for waging war against Europe, which is, you cannot define as anything else other than the economic war, right? Look at the people in the UK that's suffering. The UK economy is way worse off than the Russian economy is. I think I'll read this last part here. Together with the ill-considered, never-ending economic sanctions against Russia, the blowing up of Nord Stream by the United States has already caused enormous accumulating harm to European citizens' economy, he added. The West chooses to use weapons, threats, secret operations, and media manipulations instead of using talks, mediating, engaging the UN or the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and it abandons diplomacy and plays tough on others. And remember, I don't remember exactly who said it, but there was this NATO official who criticized the United States because they said the United States was often like just openly threaten allies. It's like, you take our position or this or this. It's not a mutually it's not a relationship built out of love and a commitment to increase the quality of life for our populace. No, it's a relationship based on upholding U.S. domination. And the United States, like, hey, do you want to benefit from United States domination? You better bow to us. And that's why China is winning over the global population. 80% is rejecting the United States. Africa, our next segment is Africa rejecting the United States for China, because China is not doing this bullshit. They went to Saudi Arabia. They went to all these countries and said, we don't care about your domestic policies. We're not here to lecture you. We're here to do business. We're here to build. We're here to increase the quality of life for people, right? And that is not what the United States is doing. And now, despite the massive media blackouts that's happening on the story, on the Nord Stream bombshell, these ideas are starting to spread, as shown by the Swedish peace activists. You got people in Europe, like the people in Germany who got sanctioned in the United States' trend. You have these people that are talking, not in BBC, not on the corporate media, not in the stuff that is showing the mainstream, but people in Europe is talking. And that's why there's nonstop protests in France. That's why the UK can't maintain a leader. They keep losing their leader every few months. You have Biden that is historically unpopular. Kamala Harris, historically unpopular. United States Congress, historically unpopular. Emmanuel Macron lost his majority. Justin Trudeau get hit with protests all the time. Meanwhile, Putin got 75% approval rating. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping is loved in China. The West is crumbling, and they know it. That's why their last thing they can do is engage in war and aggressive foreign relations. But anyway, any last thoughts? I'll get Andrew. I'll put your guys' name up here. I should have turned this on earlier. But I'll give you guys last thoughts, and I got one last story I do for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, just an exercise in critical thinking to show the culpability of U.S. in this entire conflict. That if U.S. at any point in time had told Ukraine, we won't provide weapons, cash, or intelligence to help you in this war, then Ukraine would have been forced into signing a peace deal with Russia. And the special operation would have never happened. There is no conflict there without U.S. involvement.
Absolutely. That's why I seen when NATO left, Marianne Williamson in particular, when in the Jordan interview, when she was asked about Ukraine funding, she said, "Oh, the United States, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing that we can do to really make both sides want to talk for peace." I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? If the United States pull funding, the Ukraine side must be more willing to engage in peace talks. That's why the United States is funding them, so they don't have to engage in peace talks. They refuse to connect these things. Not only is the principle as a leftist that we should be against funding Nazism and violent campaigns, the left that claims to be against gun violence is okay with exploding the black market in Eastern Europe with guns, as reported by the DHS. How are these things consistent with being a leftist? So it's not even just peace. There's so many angles on how that's why it's baffling to me how people get this wrong. I'm gonna move on. Andrew, any last thoughts? Any last thoughts on this last story?
Yeah,
just the last story of the night.
Yeah. Just one quick thing is people are always they have this talking point who are the sort of warriors in the NATO sphere, really trying to push the Ukraine war. They're like, oh, NATO is a democratic institution, and they're fighting. And this is the politicians talk too. It's like, oh, it's democracy versus authoritarianism. But I mean, NATO is a profoundly anti-democratic institution. And I learned something, just some good figures recently from an interview Rania Khalek did with Paweł Wargin, who works for the Progressive International. And he was saying that after the 2008 financial crisis, like investment into all of the European economies, especially the smaller ones in the EU, basically went to zero or even below zero. I mean, rather than investing, money's getting extracted out of the economy. And since that time, 18 members of the EU, I believe, signed up for China's Belt and Road Initiative. And there's now this you hear Jens Stoltenberg saying, I think today, China is forcing threats to our security, in the same sentence talking about, we have to combat Russia over their business in Ukraine. And he ties it together. He actually implies that it's for the same reason we need to fight China. it's profoundly undemocratic. It's like, no, Europe, you can't do business with China and Russia. You'll take the more expensive gas, and that's it. And you see, like you mentioned, all these protests in Germany all the time over the last year, and there's no talk about that. There's no talk about election rigging and huge protests in the Central and Eastern European countries, especially in NATO. It's just thrown under the rug with everything else.
Yeah, I need to. I explained this a long time ago, but I need to do another stream debunking the Western bullshit use of authoritarianism. Like, and I want to ask Capitalist this, and I got into this with Destiny in his debate when he was saying Russia is a uniquely authoritarian, and I was like, well, how is Russia uniquely authoritarian? He said, look at what they're doing in Ukraine. I'm like, do you know what the Monroe Doctrine is? Everything you accuse these quote-unquote authoritarian countries of doing, the United States have done that plus more. And then they go and say, well, look at how they force their population into these deeply regressive policies. Like, I got to do this statement later. I got to really do this breakdown because I saw this statement from Chris Hayes like a few days ago. It wasn't worth doing the RBN segment over, but I saw he was talking about how China is uniquely authoritarian. He was like, look how China forces their laws upon people. That is what he used. That's what he used to define authoritarianism. His definition of authoritarianism is when the state enforces laws. That's why, actually, no, it wasn't Destiny. It was when I was on the Hill when we saw Venezuela, and Robbie was like, Venezuela's authoritarian. I'm like, what would that mean? They enforce their laws? And the reason why they say Venezuela is authoritarian is because they say, oh my God, they arrested political opposition. You mean the people who tried to kill Nicolas Maduro? Imagine if someone went to a White House or any sort of Biden speech to try to kill the guy, try to do a violent coup of the White House administration, like January 6th. They arrested January 6th protesters. Imagine if other countries was like, oh my God, you arrested January 6th protesters. You're deeply authoritarian. They arrested those people for trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government. And you have these class traders in Florida, these gusanos, these people who fled Cuba. When Castro was implementing the policies that was dictated by the will of the proletariat because of the Cuban Revolution, you have members of the ruling class that declined to follow the policy. They refused to give up their property. So what you do when you refuse the law, you impose your authority on them. So this is my question I want to ask social democrats, like people like Kyle Kulinski and the people who rail against quote unquote authoritarianism. Let's say you accomplished your goal and we got Medicare for all done tomorrow. Imagine we got Medicare for all signed done tomorrow, but the ruling class said we're not going to pay because under Bernie Sanders' bill, the majority of the taxes that will be collected to pay for Medicare for all will come from the rich and from the bourgeoisie. What if the bourgeoisie, like they did in Cuba, like they did in Venezuela with Hugo Chavez? But imagine if we did Medicare for all and they said we're not going to pay. We're not going to. We will opt out of this. What do you do, Kyle? What do you do, social democrats? You can't force them to, or that would be authoritarianism, isn't it? Let's say you accomplish your goal of increasing the marginal tax rate to about 70 to 90%, like Bernie Sanders said. Imagine you got that done legislatively. You pass a high marginal tax rate. And then the rich say we're not going to pay it. And then the IRS said we're not going to enforce it. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, we can't do anything about it because that would be authoritarianism. No, you enforce your fucking laws. So what the West do, the reason I bring this up, the West will show examples of countries enforcing their laws, and then they say, oh my God, they're authoritarian. They're authoritarian. Like, for example, in Iran, there was a protester that was executed. And the West was like, oh my God, Iran executing protesters. That protester was arrested because he killed a police officer. Which is, to my opinion is like whatever. But imagine if we killed a police officer in the United States. What would happen to us? There are people being charged for domestic terrorism in Atlanta for protesting the police. So my point is not to say what Iran is doing is awesome. My point is the concept of authoritarianism is a myth. In order to run a government, you got to project authority. The question is, where does the authority come from? Does your authority come from the proletariat? Or does your authority come from unelected capitalist bureaucrats. So under our system, what Marxists claim, our government, our policy is dictated by capital. And there are studies that show that we live in an oligarchy. The working class have no say over public policy, right? The public have no say over public policy. That's the highest form of authoritarianism. Where we seize the means of production and we can provide healthcare and housing to our people, that is the least vicious form of authoritarianism because your authority is coming from the people. Sorry to lecture. Sorry for the lecture. But I need to have a Marxist panel when we talk about that because it's a very important. Because I see people who are anti-imperialists. They're not like Marxists. They're still like social democrats or capitalists. Where I still see them get this shit wrong. Where I still see them repeat the talking points on authoritarianism. When they say, "Oh, Iran, DPRK, China, authoritarian." Like you guys are using Western imperial language. That is what that is. That's when during the Cold War, when they used to say communist countries are authoritarian for implementing their laws. Anyway, so I think I'm gonna read this last that last rant. Anyway, I think we do 9 minutes today. I got one last story. It shouldn't be too long. Or should I say this tomorrow? It won't be a long segment. I'll wrap with this last one here. Andrew probably, yeah. Actually, yeah. We leave it there. I think that's good because I think I'll join CJ tomorrow. I think we leave it there. I think Andrew got to leave. Anyway, I'll pass to Andrew, Zoya. Actually, let's start with Andrew. Where can they find you? Any last thoughts? Anything you want to shout out?
No. I mean, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, even if somebody wanted to make the argument that, oh, it's not a colonial mindset that I have that's making me point the finger at other countries for being authoritarian when I've done absolutely nothing to stop authoritarian, just deeply bad behavior on the part of the U.S. Even if you want to make that argument, it's like, okay, how are you going to fix that? You want to argue for the U.S. military to intervene in Iran, these other countries. So yeah, I mean, it's a worthwhile rant. But yeah, if people want to find me, theheronsnest.org is where I do work. And yeah, you can find me on Colin, New Alignment, or Andrew_MG. But yeah, thanks again for having me on. Sorry, I gotta bounce, but I'll definitely catch up on the segment you do on CJ.
Yeah, I told you earlier. There's no way we're gonna do our stories today. We got a lot to cover, but we'll be back. We upload every day. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Thank you for joining us again, my friend. Any last thoughts?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, when we do it, to your point, when we do it, it's called governing. When other countries do it, it's called authoritarianism. Our cops kill more people in a week than most countries do in a year. The U.S. is not one for casting stones. And right now, Ukraine currently is ruled by far-right elements, the same organizations that participated in the Holocaust and collaborated with Nazis against the Soviet Union. The anti-communist U.S. has been helping them since 1946 and succeeded in 2014 through color revolution. That is what happened in Ukraine. There are lots of innocent Ukrainians dying in this conflict and innocent Russians dying in this conflict. I am adamantly anti-war, but unfortunately, we have to confront the reality of who is the aggressor, who puts people into power that are not democratically elected, and that Russia, even according to anti-Russian sources for decades, they were warning that they were backed into a corner, they faced a security threat, and they were forced to react. And now everyone globally is suffering. People can't afford energy. There's protests worldwide, and most of the global population does not support this hegemony or EU or NATO. So it is time for the NATO to stop doing international terrorism and eco-terrorism like they did with the Nord Stream pipeline. I hope the UN responds somehow, even though they're a corrupt organization, but at least that when Russia makes its case, that some people's minds are changed. And ultimately, this still leads back to the fact that we got to do the work in our own communities. We have to organize. We have to build our own independent infrastructures if we're ever going to seriously oppose this system.
Well said. Zoya is too powerful. Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Always great to have you on. Make sure you guys support the show if you enjoy the stream. Like I said, Nick and CJ probably tomorrow. We see got a lot of great guests coming up here soon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Lee Camp interview. I had Kit from Heartlands Media on Saturday. Have a lot more people that I'm going to bring on the show as well. So make sure you guys tune in. I think Courtney Bang from the Bank Sister with CJ today. Wednesday, we trying this new format out. We got Nick and CJ on Monday, RBN Live on Tuesday. Wednesday, CJ hosts his show in the afternoon, then Nick at night in the evening. Then Thursday, you guys know JB and Sabby show. So then Friday, Sabby pops in about 2 or 3 times a month on their show on Friday. And then on Saturday, we got Nick and CJ Saturday lives. So we got full weeks for you guys. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. Enjoying the community that we are building, having people like Zoya, Andrew, and Kit, and a lot of friends join us. So make sure you guys help us, our channel grow. I'm sure I gotta check out that Jimmy because hopefully that's true because someone said Jimmy gave us a shout out on Timcast, which would be dope. I gotta make sure I gotta check that out. But anyway, thank you guys for staying tuned for Nick and Knight. We'll probably be back tomorrow. We'll be back again. So hopefully you guys tune in, support the Patreon, like and share all that stuff. Have a good one, friends.